Unless you've lived under a rock for the last 2 years, you know that the Federal Reserve was extremely aggressive in raising interest rates. They did this to help tame inflation, to bring prices back in line. I'm going to explain to you today why I think that they're going to lower interest rates, and it's for a reason that almost nobody is talking about. So a quick primer on interest rate policy, how it works and why. Historically, the Federal Reserve has used it as a tool to either speed up the economy or slow down the economy. I always think of it as like one of those old stagecoaches, the Oregon Trail kind of thing. And the horse that's pulling the stagecoach is the economy. And so the guy that's driving the horse, I guess that would be the Fed in this case, when they want the horse to slow down, they pull on the reins. They're like, whoa, boy, whoa. And that helps slow things down. That's raising interest rates. When they're pulling back on that, they're raising interest rates to slow the economy, just like that would slow a horse. And when they need to speed it up, they would lower interest rates. Now that's the equivalent of them like whapping the horse with the reins and going like, giddy up, go, and making the horse run faster. That's where they're cutting interest rates to help speed up the economy. So keep that in mind as we go throughout the video here. So in 2022 and 2023, the Federal Reserve was doing a lot of pulling on the reins. They were, whoa, boy, whoa. By raising interest rates, they were looking to slow down the economy and therefore slow down consumption, meaning inflation would come back in line. And it has. Now, don't mishear me, because a lot of times people are like, well, inflation hasn't come down. Prices aren't going up in the same way that they were. That's different than disinflation. Prices aren't going down. They're not going back to where they were in 2019. They're simply no longer rising at the rate that they were, where we had inflation rates up into the 8s, etc. And historically, inflation's been in the 2 to 3% range. Well, we're back down around that, depending on exactly what number and what period of time you look at right now. That doesn't mean things are going back to the way prices were. That just means they're no longer rising as fast as they had been. So from that perspective, they accomplished their mission, or at least they were very close to accomplishing their mission at this point as inflation has come way down. Now let's get back to the right now then. The futures market for interest rates is forecasting that the Fed is going to cut this year. They're going to cut in 2024. Normally, remember the horse, that's done to spur the economy because of a recession. Here's the thing. A lot of economists aren't calling for a recession this year. Remember the soft landing? A lot of people are saying we'll get that. Whether we will or not, I'm not sure. But here's the thing. I think that they're going to need to cut interest rates regardless. And the reason is this. We borrow money as a country to pay our bills. Everybody knows that, right? The deficit is huge. The national debt is now over $33 trillion. $33 trillion. It's like an unfathomable sum. I'll put it right here so you can see how many zeros it is. It's absurd. $33 trillion is what we owe, and we continue to borrow more each day. We do that as a country because we've committed to spending money that we don't have. We're spending for this, we're passing a budget for this, etc. Every time you hear they're passing a budget, we only have a certain portion of that money that's actually coming in via taxes. The rest, we borrow. We borrow through treasury auctions. We issue debt and say, hey, loan us money, us being the U.S. government, loan us money, we'll pay you interest on that money, and at some point in the future, we'll repay the principal. Here's the rub. Not only are we borrowing money for spending on things that we've approved, or Congress has approved, I suppose I should say, we're also borrowing money to pay off the old debt that's expiring. So money that we borrowed previously, a year ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. As those mature, we don't have the money to pay back that person, and so we refinance. We borrow new money to pay off the old debt, and here's the rub. We're borrowing at today's interest rates. So not only are we borrowing more, we're replacing old low interest rate debt with new, currently priced higher interest rates, which Treasury's running in the 4s at this point, almost across the board. When you're replacing debt that was costing you 1%, 1.5%, maybe 2% with debt that's costing you 4%, the amount of interest that you have to pay on $33 trillion becomes very large very quickly. I'm going to show you a graph and explain exactly what I mean. So Bloomberg says that last fiscal year, we spent $879 billion just on interest on the $33 trillion bucks, $879 billion. That number has doubled in the last 19 months. That number will continue to go up every single day that we borrow new money, because remember, we're borrowing new stuff and we're also repaying older, lower interest rate debt with new, higher interest rate debt. Now, the $879 billion was for last year. They're projecting now that it's over $1 trillion for this current fiscal year, that will cross over $1 trillion just in interest payments per year. By this point, again, depending on whose numbers you look at, we're on the fast track for interest on the debt becoming one of the largest, if not the largest, federal expense that we have. Within the next year or two, it's projected to pass defense spending. It's projected to pass Medicare cost. These are the big things you hear all the politicians talking about, and the actual interest cost on the debt, not repaying any of the principal, just the actual interest cost, is going to exceed that in the near term. By the way, guys, couple of quick things. If you don't know me already, I'm Antonio Cibella. I'm a financial advisor who helps folks with their retirement. Second, and I'm sure this is obvious, but this video is my opinion. This is what I think is going to happen. I don't have a crystal ball, certainly not the opinion of the broker-dealer, etc. This is just what I think based on some things that I've read and some things that I've seen. Third, if you're enjoying the video, subscribe. Come on back. Lots of videos on the channel about retirement planning, saving for the future, that sort of thing. And I hope to see you again another time. So two things here. I think you're going to see it become a little bit more popular, talking about balancing the budget, talking about pulling back on the spending, the government spending a little bit, because while it's not catastrophic right now, it is an unsustainable path. We can't do this forever. We're not on a good trajectory. We've got to alter the trajectory. The two ways to do that are to bring in more money, raise taxes, or to lower the expenses. It's probably going to be some combination of the two, but at some point in the coming years, this is going to become more front and center because it's becoming more and more of an issue as things continue on their current path. The second thing, and the premise for the video, is that I think this is the reason why the Fed's going to start to cut interest rates. Fed governors are smart people. They understand this. They just can't come out and say it. The Federal Reserve can't be like, hey guys, we're going to have to start to cut interest rates because the national debt's becoming a problem and the interest that we have to pay on it is going to be an albatross on the growth of our economy for years to come. Even if they might think that. Now, that's my opinion, but I'm assuming that they're certainly bright enough to figure this out. They just can't say this publicly because it would cause all sorts of ripple effects to the economy and the market. Now, others have said it. The ratings agencies, you see about cuts to our rating. Fitch cut the rating. Moody's lowered the outlook. That's all happened within the last 6 months. They're saying, hey, this is going to be an issue, but it's different for them to say it than for the Federal Reserve to come out and agree with them. Nonetheless, the longer interest rates stay where they are, I'm not talking about them going higher. I'm saying the longer they stay where they are, the more expensive it will get because we've got all that old debt runoff at low interest rates coming back to get us at new higher interest rates, and they understand that. And the sooner they start to lower interest rates, the less it's going to cost in the long run on that money that we're borrowing. Now, this should not be all doom and gloom. As I said, it's not a long-term trajectory that we can stay on, but it's not anything that should really impact right now. We've got some runway as a country before this becomes a major issue, but at the pace that it's going, it's not sustainable, and I think that that's going to necessitate some change in the way things are. If you're wondering how that would affect you and your own portfolio and your own retirement, I got you covered. Click the video right here. I'll explain how it may impact you and how you might look at adjusting your own portfolio in an environment like this.